Yes, Your Honor, in response to what my learned friend, Ms. Moniki, has submitted in relation to the terms, Your Honor, we have the following to say. One, the amount of 14 billion shillings, 14 odd billion shillings, which is the amount contained in the several counts in the charge sheet, is an amount which is disputed.
Yes.
And Your Honor, there is a statutory process for determining any dispute in relation to a tax assessment or demand. And therefore, we would want the court to take that into consideration in looking at the Tax Procedures Act and the offenses created therein. The whole legal regime is founded on the fact that there's a specific procedure governing assessment, demand, or disputation of tax. So the amount as we speak today is speculative until this court makes a determination of the issues that we're going to raise during the trial. The second issue is that the persons appearing before you under the law are presumed to be innocent. And at this stage, consideration of what may happen as a consequence of a finding of guilt is speculative and not relevant for purposes of considering whether to grant bail or not. Thirdly, the third consideration that I would want to bring to the attention of the court is that for all practical purposes, the three accused persons are one entity. Because Mr. Karanja and Mrs. Karanja are charged as directors of Keroche Breweries Limited. That company has only one pass. And a common source of revenue. So Your Honor, would ask you, in consideration of the amount of bail, to put that into consideration. Because the terms really have a bearing or is instructive of the primary consideration when dealing with bail, and that primary consideration is whether or not the accused persons will attend when required to attend, during a mention or a trial. The other issue that we would want the court to put into consideration, and we are grateful that yesterday in the evening, it was evidently clear that Mr. Karanja could not be kept in custody. Looking at his condition, medical condition, and his doctor, out of desperation, wrote a note which I've made available to the prosecution. Mr. Karanja has recently undergone a life-saving surgery. And to that extent, we appreciate the fact that the prosecution and the police were able to release him before 10 o'clock last night. And despite his medical condition and having been granted a free bond, he appeared this morning.
He was granted a free bond?
Yeah, free bond. It was not even he was not required to pay any money. He was not required to deposit any security, but was able to come here as early as possible for purposes of taking plea. So I would plead to the court that reading the Constitution, the right not only of arrested persons but even accused persons, the right of bail should not be tampered with, or there should never be stringent conditions placed unless there is material placed before the court as to why those conditions must be applied in relation to any accused person. We are a state governed by the Bill of Rights, which according to Article 19 is a fundamental condition and state of our democracy. And therefore, I would have, or rather we would have been in a position to appreciate the conditions upon which these stringent measures are required. But no material has been placed before your Honor as to why those stringent measures should be applied. And plead with the court not to be attracted by these figures that we're seeing in the charge sheet. Even the best taxpayers, if we even go by the report last year, or the best taxpayers who were given awards for any taxpayer to have a tax demand of the amounts which are in the charge sheet will be an exceptional taxpayer. So, Your Honor, I would urge you, since there is no material placed before you, to unnecessarily be persuaded that the figure of 14 billion shillings should be necessarily a factor to be taken into consideration in determining the terms of bail. So I urge you that to give us reasonable cash bail and together with that, Your Honor, in respect of the company, that appropriate security be placed or be deposited with the court within 7 days. But the two accused persons, Mr. Karanja and Mrs. Karanja, be granted reasonable cash bail. Your Honor, the Bible says that what the Lord has put together, let no man cast asunder. Yesterday, that sin was committed. Mr. Karanja was thrown away from Mrs. Karanja. So in awarding the terms and conditions of bail, let not what the Lord has put together be cast asunder. So we urge that there should be a reasonable terms of bail, cash bail, that the two of them together will be able to deposit with the court. Yeah, exactly. As to the question of travel documents, I plead with the court that it would not be necessary in the circumstances for them to deposit their travel documents. By the sheer fact that the enterprise they run, which for very good measure they have taken to Naivasha, the kind of investment that they have established in Kenya, a lot of people would want to put that kind of investment in Nairobi or some big city. But that investment has been established and is operating in Naivasha. They are Kenyans. And there's no reason to suggest that they would abandon for any reason running the operations of that important investment. And Mrs. Karanja, as has been pointed out, she's the chief executive officer of the company, involved in the day-to-day running of the enterprise. And Mr. Karanja is the chairman of the board of directors. So under those circumstances, they would not want to stay away from jurisdiction. But if the court is minded to direct that they deposit their travel documents, I would ask the court to require that to be done in the next 7 days. Because as they were arrested yesterday, and and appearing in court today, it was not anticipated that this condition would be required to be met. But we are saying this notwithstanding the fact that we would want to persuade the court that that freedom of movement, which is facilitated by a passport, should not be interfered with unless there are exceptional circumstances or material placed before the court. That Mr. and Mrs. Karanja would be flight risks.
Yes.
I think that's, yeah, yes. So that will be all for our team.